And speaking of past storms, Fiona hit Puerto Rico almost 5 years after to the day that Hurricane Maria swept through the island. It was one of the most destructive storms in U.S. history. So, how does Fiona stack up to Hurricane Maria?
Very, very different storms because Maria, one of these big storms with a lot of wind, sort of approaching a major category storm. So, more significant wind damage from that storm. As we know, Puerto Rico and our fellow citizens down there in Puerto Rico were without power and resources for weeks and even months in some cases. As I wrote in the Forbes article last week leading up to Fiona, I talked about they aren't the same storm. They will have a different personality, so to speak, but it will be a devastating storm for Puerto Rico, Fiona, for different reasons, mostly because of the flooding. I don't think, but one of the things that, talking about Maria, Brittany, that's relevant to a place like Puerto Rico, they still haven't fully recovered from Maria. And the infrastructure there, the power grid, some of the transportation network. I saw with Fiona that a bridge was washed out because of Fiona, and it was a temporary bridge that had been erected because of Maria. And so you have this cascade impact where you are still recovering from an infrastructure perspective from a devastating storm like Maria, and then you compound it with follow-on storms like Fiona.
So that sounds wide scale and devastating. So where is Puerto Rico today with the recovery efforts from Fiona?
I think they're recovering, and I think the federal system and the president and FEMA and various others acted much more quickly this time around, and so I think that they are on the road to recovery. It'll be challenging, but I think they're on the right path, and I think they know what needs to be done. And so, I've seen social media posts from friends and colleagues that have family in Puerto Rico, and though there are is there. I think it's a much better situation than what we saw in the immediate days after Maria.
And is this the last we're seeing of Fiona, or is Fiona still a threat?
No, I think it's really interesting. As we're talking here on Friday morning, Fiona is a Category 3, at least the last I checked, storm zooming toward Bermuda. But really, what's sort of blowing my mind, Brittany, is that this storm will be significantly strong as it reaches places like Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. I even saw evidence of the hurricane cone near Greenland. These are places that we don't normally mention when we think about or talk about hurricanes. And so uh, I think this will be a storm for the ages. As a colleague of mine wrote, and I just published a new Forbes piece that I wrote early this morning about the sort of fate of Fiona. And I quoted a colleague who said, kids in Nova Scotia, when they're adults, will be talking about Fiona. That's how bad it could be for people in that region. Because one, they just don't get these types of storms, and two, they don't get these types of storms that are going to be this strong that far north.
So is this completely unprecedented for these regions?
It's not unprecedented, but it's rare. There have certainly been other storms that have reached this region, but this is one of the fewer storms that I've seen that are forecasted to be of this intensity at that latitude. This could very well, and only time will tell, but this could very well be the strongest storm in Canadian history there.